Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired.
All around with masking tape. Now this masking tape, I have taped both the outside part of the last and the inside part of the last. Then I have drawn a line to run across the center of this last. And then in front, and then another line to run the center of the last at the back of the last like this. Then I put the last on this flat surface like this, and I marked this way and got this point here. Put it on the flat surface like this and mark that way and got this point here. And we said that these 2 points are called balls. The balls of the last. They actually, when you are walking, they're actually the point where your feet bend. It is at this point that your feet bends. This place will remain at 90 degrees to the ground, and then your feet can actually bend. So the joint is around here. So we said that these 2 points are called balls. Then we drew a line from the ball on the inside to the ball on the outside. And that line intersected the center line somewhere in the middle here. And we said that this line is called what? The vamp line. And this point where it intersects this center line is called the vamp point. Then we placed this point here and then marked this last to get this tip here at the tip of the last. So center line, vamp point, inside ball, outside ball. Then we measured the length of this last from here on the side like this, going all the way to the tip of the last like this, and we found that it was 35 centimeters. We divided that 35 centimeters by 4, and it gave us 8.75 centimeters. So we marked 8.75 centimeters from the vamp point here, going upwards like this. So from here to here, that's 8.5, 0.6, 0.7, basically 8.75, right? Then we measured the last length. That last length that we got is 35 centimeters. That is this distance running all the way to the tip like that, 35 centimeters. We divided it by 5 and measured from the bottom of the center line at the back. So divided by 5 is 7. As you can see, that's 7 centimeters, right? So we marked 7. Now, this point that we marked, measured from the vamp point here, the last length divided by 4, measured from the vamp point going upward. This point where it intersects with the center line is called the instep. Last length divided by 5, marked on the center line at the back. This point at the back is called the counterpoint. So these points are very important in designing shoes. The measurement from here going that way, last length equal to 35 centimeters. It could be any other measurement depending on the last that you have, right? Then these points here, balls. There's a ball on the outside and ball on the inside. Then this line that runs from the balls is called the vamp line. This point, vamp point. This point, instep. And what's the formula? Last length divided by 4, measured from the vamp point. Yeah? This point is called what? Counterpoint. And what's the formula? Last length divided by 5, measured from the base of the center line at the back here. So having found all these points, the next thing we will do is to cut this tape along the center line and peel it off. When you're peeling off, you try not to stretch it. Try not to stretch the tape and distort the dimensions on the tape. So let's peel out the outside part first. Okay. So when it out like this, we will paste it on a piece of cardboard. Now in pasting it on a piece of cardboard, you have to be careful. You don't want to rumple it too much and distort the shape. So you start first of all, these points like this, you ensure that they lie straight. Then you carefully flatten out these parts like this. It appears that now this tip part and this base part like this may not agree to lie flat because they are actually curves. So it's okay to cut some notch. 2 notches will do around this base here, and with that you'll be able to flatten this out. So then the same may happen around here. So it may also be okay to cut just a small notch here. Let's put this here and flatten this. Now in flattening out this top part, you have to be careful. You don't want to have one major wrinkle. It's okay to have several wrinkles instead of one major wrinkle. You understand what I'm saying? So several wrinkles distributed along, in fact, I think they are clustered too much in one area. Just several wrinkles distributed along the length of that center line. And you flatten it out. Then we'll basically just use our scissors and cut out the edge. So we've cut it out. Now this is the outside part of this last. The outside part of any anatomy, a shoe, your leg, your body, the outside part is known as the lateral side. So we label this side, or LS. We'll do the same for this. Now the inside part is known as the medial side, or MS. So we'll peel it off. We'll peel it off, and then do the same thing that we did on this one for it. Let's heal that wound first of all. So we'll peel this out and then put it on cardboard and do the same thing that we did. So let's go ahead and peel this off. So take this, do the same thing that we did. First of all, you ensure that it lies flush. And then this place may need 1 or 2 notch for it to lie flush. So we try to even that out. Then we basically cut it out like we did before. So we've cut this out. So you see, this is the lateral side, this is the medial side. Now these things that we've cut out, they are known as last copies. They are known as last copies. So the last copies are copies of the last. So we've made a copy of the outside part, the lateral side. We made a copy of the inside part, the medial side, right? Now, we don't want to be designing on two things. We just want to design on one thing that is reflective of the two sides. And that is what is going to lead us into making something from these two last copies called a mean form. Some people add an E at the back of it, a mean form. In mathematics, you know that mean means average, right? So we're going to find the average between this medial side and the lateral side. So when we find that average, we know that the dimensions we find on both sides will be reflected on that mean form, and it is that mean form that we will use to design any type of shoe that we want to design for this last. In this class, we're going to design 3 different types of shoes. We're going to design Oxfords, derbies, and loafers. This is an Oxford. This one you see here is called an Oxford. The key characteristic of an Oxford, you see this front part, this facing part, it is tucked inside this part that is called the vamp. So this facing is tucked inside the vamp, and it has laces. So this facing is the place where you have the lace, the eyelets, the lace holes. It is tucked inside the vamp, and that's what makes it an Oxford. It is different from this one, which is a derby. The difference is that whereas this facing is tucked inside the vamp, in this one it is on top of the vamp. So you sew the facing on top of the vamp, whereas in this case you tuck it inside the vamp. That's the key difference between the two of them. This capto you find here, you can put a capto on a derby. That's not what differentiates them. If you like, you can put brogue holes. You know those brogue holes that they put, what they call brogues. Give me that shoe that is there. So you find that you have, so this is a derby for instance, right? So this is a derby. You find that the facings is sewed on top of the vamp. Now it has a brogue hole. The brogue is not what makes it an Oxford or a derby. The brogue is just a design element. So you could put brogues on an Oxford. You can put brogues on a derby. You can even put brogues on a loafers. So this one is a loafers. So you see that this one doesn't have any laces. It's just a slip-on shoe. You slip on. So the point is, you see that when I taped this last, I did not design anything on top of this last. There was a reason for it. The reason is because I am going to create a mean form and I'll design on my mean form. So I don't have to design. In fact, after I create my mean form, I don't have to ever tape this last again in my life. Anytime I want to make any design for this last, I'll bring out the mean form that corresponds to this last and I'll use it to do my designs. So let's create the mean form. So like we said, we're going to create the mean form now. To start creating the mean form, the first thing we will do is we'll take this medial side. And all these points that we marked on it, we'll cut notches at those points to indicate them. So this is the instep, right? This is the what? Vamp point. This is that tip. This is the ball, and then this is the counterpoint. Now take a plain piece of cardboard like this and place. So this is the medial side. We flip it over. We flip it over like this. Before we flip it over, we'll take this. We'll take the end of it like this and touch it to the tip. Fold it into two. That means we've divided the back center line into two. Then we'll cut a notch there to show the middle of the back center line. Right? So this is the middle of the back center line. Now take it, flip it over like we said, and trace it out on a piece of paper. You notice that as we are doing it, we are marking in all of these points. Marking that point. So we've traced it out on this piece of paper, right? Then we will take the lateral side. Do the same thing we did. Touch end to end. Cut a notch. So if we put this middle here and touch this tip here, yeah, and just do the most that we can to see that the vamp points align, we can trace this on top of that. So this is the vamp point, the tip, this is the ball, right? Now you see that they don't match themselves. Remember what we said we are doing is we are getting a mean form, the average. So to find that average, we find the middle in between the two of them. So let's represent that with dash lines, right? So the middle between the two of them like this. Another place is at the back here. We find the middle between the two of them, right? Now, under this one that is under, you don't need to find the middle. No need. It will go under the last. The more leather we have on, unless you're using leather, the more leather we have that goes under the last, the better for us. The less chance that you make a mistake. All right? It's better that more leather goes under the last, that you don't have sufficient leather to pull under the last. So what you do in this case is you take whichever line that is longer. So whichever line is longer, that's what we'll take. So we take it. We take this one that goes. In fact, it got here and it goes like this. So if we cut now, we can also cut along, measure the middle along this part. Now, but before we do any cutting, so this is the vamp point, but this is one ball, that's another ball. So we find the middle between the two of them. So if we draw a line from the vamp point to that new middle line, that will become our new vamp line. Yeah, this will become our new vamp line. This will now become our average, our mean ball. This is the inside ball, this is the outside ball. This will become our mean ball here, right? Because we are taking the longer of the two lines. So having done this, now don't forget this is the tip here, and the instep is somewhere around here. That is the counterpoint. Remember, the counterpoint, right? So this is the counterpoint. So what we will do is we will cut along these dash lines that we made. We said for this one we'll take the longer of the two lines. Cut along the middle, the dashed lines. So this new, so having done this last copies that we have, we can throw them away. We don't need them again. This is our mean form. It represents what you find on the outside part of this last and what you find on the inside part of this last. So any design that we make on this mean form will match this last. So you don't need to take this last again. So every time you buy a last, you can basically create your mean form. But so that you remember which mean form matches the last that you have to label your mean forms properly. Where's my pen? So you see that this last is, the last number is ERO 1979. Yeah, size 45. So there are a number of things that I need to represent on this mean form. I need to represent that the last length is equal to what? 35 centimeters. Right? We already have the instep here. We already have the ball. We've already indicated the tip. We've already marked the counterpoint. The only other thing that we need to do is what is called the heel height. How high? What heel height should we use for this last? Now, when you are walking, when you stand, your toes don't touch the ground exactly. They are usually around about this way. Your toes lift. When you're wearing a shoe, your toes lift off of the ground a little bit like this. So this distance that it lifts off of the ground is called the toe spring. Typically, shoemakers represent it by just putting a pen or a pencil at the tip of the last like this. And then they measure the distance from the back here, from the ground. Now, this distance is what is called the heel height. So the heel height is how far the back of the last lifts from the ground when you have factored in the toe spring. So we'll measure this distance and then write it down on this mean form. So toe spring, heel height. So let's measure. So this is barely about. So if this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's call it 4.5. That is 4.5 here. Yeah. So heel height is equal to 4.5 centimeters. So you can simply take this mean form and file it, put it in your filing system. You don't have to store your patterns. You can basically take this mean form and file it. Whenever you want to create a shoe for this last, you basically just bring out this mean form, trace out this mean form on a plain sheet of paper and use it to do your design. And that is what we're going to do next. We're going to design an Oxford on this mean form. After we are finished designing an Oxford, we'll design